Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Sustainable Stow with the Randall Library. I'm Tina McAndrew, the director of the library, and as you may have just heard, we are recording this to be put on Stow TV on YouTube. So welcome. Just a few housekeeping items. Please keep yourself on mute to eliminate some of the background noise. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We will be reviewing them as the session goes on. I don't think I have anything else unless I forgot something, so I will hand it over to Rick.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody here tonight. And welcome to Matt Brown, the new executive director from OARS. And with him is Heather Conkerton. And Heather, I'm not exactly sure how long you've been in your position. I think you're pretty new also, right? She's the Ecological Restoration Coordinator.
I started last year, so a little over a year.
A little over a year.
Still not enough time to really, there's a lot to learn, so still learning.
For us all, right. So we're very happy to have you both. Matt's got a career in nonprofit management, and Heather has been, her specialty is ecological restoration, and she's been working in various places in that area for a number of years. I noted that she has field experience studying aquatic invasive species and threatened and endangered species. We have some of those. We've got a perfect opportunity for her. Anyway, so we're very glad to have you both here tonight. And if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat. And we'll have a time for questions, but we'll let Matt and Heather begin. So over to you, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for having us. So Heather's going to be in control of the slides, and we are going to go over a number of things. I'm going to do kind of a basic introduction to OARS and overview of what we do, and then Heather's going to take the more specific content. So again, I'm Matt Brown. I'm the new ED, coming up on 3 months, and we're OARS. So why don't we go to the next slide? So OARS does a number of activities. Before we get into that, we just kind of want to go over who we are and how we got there. So we are we're a watershed organization for the Sudbury, Assabet, and Concord Rivers, the Sioux-Asco watershed. Does the next slide go into our history? I can't remember. I think I can talk about it in this slide. No, go back. So we were founded in the 80s, I think 1986, by a group of river advocates, fishermen, and recreation folks who really were not happy with the state of the Assabet River. And through their work for policy and really to overhaul the wastewater treatment plants regulations and discharge limits for phosphorus, we're able to do a really great job cleaning up the Assabet. It still has work to be done, but that's kind of how we started. And then later on, we took on the Sudbury and Concord Rivers and added the S to OARS. So we've been around for almost 40 years and have done a lot of really good work in that time. So if you want to go on to the next slide. So I'm going to go over a number of our activities, and this is not inclusive of everything. We're a small organization, but we do a lot. So one of the main activities that we do is our river science work. We do water quality sampling through our volunteer citizen scientists. We do have a staff water quality scientist who's excellent, who's a really huge asset for the organization. And through our volunteer work, and we're actually training our volunteers for this season, they take samples at various spots throughout all of our rivers. And those samples are for a number of metrics. We're taking bacteria samples, as well as samples for the nutrients in the water, as well as temperature. And all of this gets rolled up into a number of different reports. So we provide an annual water quality report that goes to the state, as well as other stakeholder organizations. And that really influences what we advocate for in terms of policy and regulations of our rivers. We're also monitoring for salt That's it's not a new problem, but it's been exacerbated by climate change. So with our winters that we have snowfall and ice, then melting, and snowfall and ice and melting, it's causing more and more of the road salt to get into our streams and then our rivers. And the saltiness in that water is not good for the ecosystem and causes all sorts of harms. So we are tracking that as well. And then again, we're still watching the wastewater treatment plants. So we recently have been tracking one plant in our watershed that has been discharging more than it's permitted to, its phosphorus discharge, and we're following up on that. This is an ongoing fight that we have to stay active in to make sure that all of the players are doing what they need to do to keep our rivers clean and safe. You can go to the next slide. Another activity, and again, this kind of relates to the water quality sciences or policy and advocacy work. So we do a great deal of lobbying and advocating for various bills, regulations, policy changes. One of the big ones is OARS was instrumental in getting sections of our rivers deemed wild and scenic, which protects them, but also allows access to funding to continue the work we're doing for stewardship, water quality, and recreation activities. We also have a number of bills that are either in the Ways and Means or recently out for drought as well as invasive species. And we are about to send out a comment letter for the new Wetlands Protection Act regulations. So we're still actively working to ensure that OARS has an influence and a say on the policy work and the whatever legislation is going through our state and federal government to ensure the protection of our rivers and also just rivers in general. We work, it's not on here, but we work closely with Massachusetts River Alliance. That's a larger group that works with all of the different watershed organizations in the state. And we try to stay in line with they're a real resource for us to know what bills and what regulations are coming down the pipe for us to attach our comments to as well. So it's a busy section of what we do. You can go to the next slide. So this is what Heather's going to be talking about. This is active work that OARS does to restore our rivers to their wild and free status. So that's OARS is for that. OARS is for restoring all of our rivers to that. And that we're going to talk a bit about dam removal, but there's other activities we do as well. So for instance, we're going to have a ribbon cutting for a rain garden in Marlboro that's coming up very shortly. That's May 6th. But we do have two major dam removal projects that are in the works. One is the Talbot Mills Dam in Villarica, which is going through the end of its permitting stage. And we should be looking at entering our construction stage in the not so distant future, hopefully by the summer of next year. And then Wheeler Pond in Berlin, which is currently going through the construction, the design and permitting phase thereafter. So it's they're both in the works. And we also lead the Suwasco Climate Resiliency Coalition. And we're always, so it's not on this slide, but Heather, as well as Ben Wetherell, our water quality scientist, have been putting together a dam prioritization list, which I think Heather's going to talk about at some point in this presentation, so I won't talk about it too much. But it's a very useful resource that helps us determine which dams and also which other projects we want to pursue, advocate for, and potentially project manage the completion of. So this is a very active area for OARS. You can go to the next one. Stewardship. So again, we need people to care about the rivers. I think we all got involved either in conservation or working professionally for organizations like OARS because we really love the rivers, we love the outdoors. And with that comes the desire to protect and care for them. And without that, if people don't connect on a personal and emotional level with these amazing resources, they're not going to want to protect them. So we do a lot with stewardship, and we're going to be doing a lot more in the future. Currently, we've worked with a volunteer and Heather to develop a water chestnut reporting app, which allows community members to notify us through this app where water chestnuts are, which helps guide our water chestnut cleanup. Am I good on time? I think I might have gone over a little bit. We also have a Weed Warriors certification program where we help them identify which plants are invasive and the proper ways to pull them, because you can't harm the ecosystem if you go about that the wrong way. And there's a number of other activities that we're doing currently, and also that are going to be in the works. There's going to be a whole new section of our website, which we have a website now, but we're launching a new website in mid-June. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for volunteers to get involved with this. You can go to the next slide. Outreach and education. So again, going back to stewardship, I think getting people aware of the issues on the water, particularly kids, and also getting those kids early positive experiences with our watershed on our rivers is essential to our sustained presence and our sustained ability to do the work we do. So currently we run a series of workshops called WaterWise workshops. We run them in 2 locations, both through the Boys and Girls Club in Hudson and Framingham. And every summer we reach over 100 kids. And this has been going on for years and years and years. We're continuing to do that through 2024. And through some work we're doing with capacity building and grants, we're hopefully going to be expanding that for both the spring of 2025 and summer of 2025. And also primarily focusing on underserved and low-income communities where kids don't get as many opportunities for hands-on nature-based learning. And we want to right that as much as possible. And I think, was that the last slide that I have? Nope, recreation. Again, this is all tied together: education, stewardship, and recreation. We need to foster people's love and desire to protect our rivers. One of the big items we've done for recreation is our river maps. And we're actually working on a grant right now to print the upcoming maps that we will update on either recycled material or some type of material that is eco-friendly, it has low impact on the environment through its production. We also host our annual Wild and Scenic Film Festival. We just had our 16th film festival in Maynard on the April 17th, and it was amazing. We had a full house and some wonderful films. And we're going to be doing a number of events, including a community paddle as part of Riverfest. So stay tuned, sign up for our website, sign up for our newsletter and Otter News. And if you want to be involved with any of those activities or events, just sign up, and we're happy to have more people engaged and involved. So I think with that, it's time to hand it over to Heather.
Thanks, Pat. I will talk about this area first. This rich history that we have in this area, and the fact that this is not a new area. It's been around since, forever. And there's such a rich history. And one thing I do want to point out is that we are on the native lands of the Nipmuc in Massachusetts. Not only do we have our more recent history, like our industrialized history, but we need to make sure that we honor the natives that came before us. So with my work for the ecological restoration, I'm actually going to start with what is a watershed? A lot of times when you ask people what a watershed is, they might not necessarily know. And this is part of what we teach our kids with the WaterWise workshops over the summer. So it's an area of land that drains, it sheds into a specific water body. And it's all interconnected. And that's where your rainfall and your snow melt goes. That goes into the streams and the rivers, and then it goes out to the ocean. In Massachusetts, on a large scale, there are at least 33 major watersheds. Now, some of these watersheds go from, let's say, New York down to Massachusetts, down to New Hampshire. So a lot of these watersheds are large and they are multi-state. This is where we are. Technically, they call it the Concord watershed because the Concord River is what touches the next watershed, which is the Merrimack. And just to give you more of a scale of that, so the Merrimack comes down from the White Mountains. And if you look at the bottom corner, where we are in the yellow, that is the Suazco. We actually flow upward That's geology. So we go from a high point to a low point. We go into the Merrimack and then out to the ocean. And as you can see, the Merrimack goes down and then we kind of go up and out. We're all interconnected. And then on the right-hand side, if you look at our actual watershed, the orange is the Assabet, the green is the Sudbury, and the yellow is the Concord. Stow is about right here. So what is ecological restoration? So you probably heard that term and you probably heard conservation. Conservation actually is what we're doing when we take preventative measures to protect our land, our water, whereas ecological restoration is actually the recovery of an ecosystem that's either been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. So in that case, we're retroactively repairing that damaged ecosystem. So my number one focus is actually dam removal. And I'll explain this as an umbrella in just a little bit. Because we want free flowing rivers and streams because they're healthier, they're cleaner, they're cooler, they're connected. I also focus on invasive species. We want native species to flourish. So part of what we do is as Matt said, we do removal events. I have 2 scheduled for this year. Hopefully we'll be scheduling some more. And right now that my main focus on aquatic invasive species is water chestnut. And then I concentrate on the climate resiliency projects that we can do. And part of that's through the climate coalition that we have, the Suez Climate Coalition. We have 36 communities. We have pieces of a few, but we have 36 communities within our watershed. So I'm always trying to get all of our watershed communities to actually attend these meetings because what we do is we exchange ideas. And part of it is looking at flood, drought, storm, and heat. What are we going to do in the future? What is going to help us with public health and safety, keeping our biodiversity, and what's going to help us with water quality? Because water quality does become an issue when you have a lot of pollution. So what's the urgency with this? The damage right now is, our storms are getting worse. We're cycling between droughts and storms, and we have aging infrastructure with dams and culverts that are creating bottlenecks for floods. So all these things are coming to a point where we really need to have some urgency with doing some ecological restoration. So the community of Stow, they did a resilience building workshop. This was the summary of their findings back in 2018. The top hazards identified were drought, strong storms, and extreme temperatures. And I actually was speaking with Kathy Safara today, your conservation agent. And what she said, and this dovetails everything of what I'm doing, talking about flooding and undersized culverts. So these are your main and top hazards. So when I look at dam removal, I think of this almost as an umbrella. This is what comes to mind for me. They're creating degraded habitat. That's not to say that dams didn't have a purpose. Dams had purposes when they first were created. Most of them are at a point where they're aging they're aging, and so they're starting to fall apart and they're becoming hazards. Some of them, very few of them still actually have a function. Either they're holding back flooding or they're a drinking water source. They might provide hydropower, but most of them have no function whatsoever. So it's degrading the habitat along the river, which creates, ripe conditions for invasive species to occur. And also it's creating effects for the climate, which is changing, which I'll explain just a little bit. So just in case you didn't know, there are about 3,000 dams within Massachusetts, over 8,000 miles of river, and 300 of these are considered high hazard potential, meaning the highest level of danger, meaning that they are likely to either cause, if they were to break, they would cause either a loss of life or economic damage or both. So within the Suasco watershed, we have about 162 dams. And I will say with starting last year and doing work on our prioritization guide, we are learning that there are more dams than we thought. And there's some dams that we think are dams that are actually culverts. So doing this work, we're able to catalog all the dams, and hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do some kind of culvert work as well, or roll those into the same projects for dam removal. There are 17 main stem dams, but there are no dams in the Wild and Scenic, which is that green line that you see on the map on the right-hand side. In order to be a Wild and Scenic segment, it has to have no impediments. So this is the dam prioritization and action plan that we're coming up with. These are just a few of the metrics that we were using. We were looking at, if we were to remove a dam, how many upstream miles would actually open up? What are the key fish species that use that area? And then the condition of the dam itself. But these are just a few of the metrics. And this is what's helping us prioritize which dams that we would like to look at for restoration. So within Stow, you have 8 dams, and these are the levels: high hazard, significant hazard, low hazard, and non-jurisdictional. So you don't have any high hazard dams, which is great, but you do have 2 significant hazards, 4 low hazard, and then 2 non-jurisdictional. Non-jurisdictional just means that the state is not actually going to take care of that at all. They're not gonna assign a hazard to it. That is up to the owner. That's something that they have to take care of. These are the dams within your watershed. You can see there are a couple that are a few that are poor or unsafe. I know that there is a dam. There's a plan in place, I do believe, for Lake Boone Dam, but I won't touch on that. But these are all private except for the DCR and the town of Stow. So when I'm looking at these dams, a part of my work, I'm thinking of how hazard potential is, what's the potential risk to human life or economic and environmental impacts if the dam were to fail? What's the physical condition of this dam? Is it in poor, unsafe health? And then you take the 2 factors together, and that's our urgency focus, and that is what helped us prioritize which dams that we want to take a look at. And part of the dams, the things that happen with dams, again, going back to the definition of ecological restoration and impaired habitat, it's actually blocking the passage for fish migration. And I don't mean just diagenous fish that go from the ocean to freshwater. They use both fresh and salt water for their life cycles. I mean also for resident fish. Resident fish, when it's hot, there's a drought, they need different areas to escape to. They need to be able to find food, and they need to be able to escape predation. So if there are a series of dams, there's not many places for them to go. These dams actually slow the water as well. So it degrades the water, it becomes warm, it accumulates nutrients, and it affects sensitive species, but it also causes algal blooms and it decreases the oxygen levels. So you'll have fish die-offs. This is actually the Allen Street Dam. So in this case, as I said, as Matt mentioned, OARS was formed because there were citizens who were very concerned about the effluents coming out of wastewater treatment plants. Those have mostly been cleaned up, and the permitting has gotten more stringent, and you're not seeing as much of that. And we're not seeing many algal blooms from that. But we're still having problems with dams and the impoundments behind. We also are still having problems with runoff from, let's say, fertilizer from, lawns, and that going to the water, creating this extra, excess nutrients of phosphorus and nitrogen. Then we're having these algal blooms, and that blocks the sun. It creates die-off. So there's still things. There are impoundments, but we're still getting nutrients from the land for different reasons, whether it's farms or residential areas. So there are things that people can do individually to help stop that overgrowth and the nutrient pollution. And like I said, we do deal with invasive species. This species in particular absolutely loves impoundments because it creates that slow, warm water. And as you can see, this is just a very, it's a picture that's only showing one little snippet, but these will absolutely cover an area, and you could be pulling for days and still not make a dent. So they love stagnant water and excess nutrients. And this, Julia who used to work with OARS, who is retired, she said that she's actually seen fish struggling to breathe within these mats. These seeds on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, sorry, they can survive in the sediment. They say 12 to 15 years, but we had a member on our AIMS committee today, our subcommittee on aquatic invasive species, that says, you know, he's been doing this for 20 plus years, and he's, because of the cyclical effects of these invasive species, he's thinking that the seeds really are probably viable for way longer than 12 years, maybe 20 plus, and it is entirely possible. As Matt said, we do stewardship. I had an Eagle Scout contact me last year. He was very interested in doing his project with us. And so what he did, we came up with this. I designed it with our communications person, Sarah, and we came up with this design, and then he fundraised and then had these installed all over the watershed. So people, as they're paddling or before they get into the water, they can take a quick snap of the QR code, and it tells them how to become their own weed warrior so that they can pull as they go along, which I'm going to give a little plug for our water chestnut app. So this app is not the type of app that you would actually, you know, go into your Google Play and download. That's actually very expensive to do. So Ben Weather, a water quality scientist, actually created this app. And so what you can do is you can pop this open, if it's safe enough for you to do it, as you're paddling the rivers. And it would be great if you could let me know where you're seeing the water chestnut, where it's seen, where if you happen to pull it, that would be great. The picture on the right is actually Ice House Pond in Acton. We did a pull last year. We did it rather late because the stewardship coordinator was brand spanking new, and he'd only been there about 3 weeks. He's like, can we do a pull? Do you think we can pull it off? I'm like, absolutely. At this time of the season, though, these rosettes, which is what forms the basis of the plant, they're pretty big. There's a lot of them, as you can see. It's covering that area, and we did a pretty good job, but I have to say these things cover enormous areas. So when I look at invasive species, especially in the case of water chestnut, so the photo on the left is actually from a few years ago. They did an incredible amount of removal, and they were trucking it in, you know, off-site because they had to put it somewhere. It has to be above the water line. So I think of that kind of as a Band-Aid. In the future, I'd like to get more to dam removals because that will help with the invasive species. But the photo in the middle is actually of Talbot Mills. This is, again, a dam that's coming down hopefully next year. But as you can see, this is in a drought, so there's no water moving. So the water behind it is pretty warm and pretty stagnant. And if you can see that mat, that is all invasive water chestnut. So when this dam comes down, we'll do post removal for a couple of years to make sure there aren't any plants left. I mean, it may take a few years, but for the most part, once this water starts moving again, it'll create better conditions for these plants to not actually take root. So I see the removal events, they're fun and they're awesome, and we are making a difference. In the areas where we can't hand pull, we actually have to do herbicides, although that's done at the town level. But if we're not doing that, then, you know, our more permanent solution would be dam removal. Nowadays, we have a lot more of these species cropping up. Eurasian milfoil, variable milfoil, hydrilla, curly-leaf pondweed. Sometimes it's successional. When you get rid of one invasive species, unfortunately, another one comes through. And I don't work with these species right now, but I'm hoping as we build capacity, we'll be able to work with these species in the future. My little last plug for the invasive species is I've done a lot with invasive species. I did boat inspections in Washington State. And what we did is we checked the boat, every part of the boat. And so you could have just water, standing water, not know there's something microscopic in it, and go from one water body to another. Water chestnut is not spread through fragments. However, milfoil is. So if you have even just a little piece, fragment on your boat, and you take it from one water body to another, you potentially spread it. So that's just my little thing about invasive species: clean, drain, and dry. And that includes your boat and all equipment that you're using. So when we, bringing it back to, restoring the ecosystem and creating ecological resilience. There are many ways that we can do this, but as I was told, Stow has a big problem with undersized culverts. You do have some dams, but when you free up that space, so like, let's say you do take down a dam, you're creating more floodplain. So we want to create more floodplain to absorb some of this water that's happening. And then when we are able to, and hopefully in the future, OARS will be able to do this, we'll also do, resizing culverts, because once we take a dam down, we can't have all that water flowing through a culvert that's too small to handle it. So we also want to make sure those culverts are large enough to pass that water. But we want to work with nature, and we want to create these natural flooding systems. And then here's just another picture. This is Water Pond Dam in a drought. So there's no water coming through at all. And then this is the Essex Dam in Lawrence. That's a very large dam. It's a hydroelectric dam, but there's a fish elevator. So this elevator actually takes them from one level up over the dam to the other. And if you've never been there to watch this, it's quite amazing. I would suggest taking a tour if you can. And as Matt said, the other thing through the Climate Take Coalition that I have been working on, which is finally coming to fruition on May 6th. If you're around, it's at the Marlborough Senior Center from 11 to 12. The mayor will be doing a ribbon cutting, but we have a sign. The sign, it actually faces a park. So as people come around the track, they're able to look at it and read about rain gardens and how they can actually do it for themselves. Rain gardens are great for collecting stormwater and filtering out the water and capturing some of that flooding. This particular area where this was put, it does flood right there. So hopefully this will help with the flooding, and will also help filter that water for groundwater. But as people come around the track, they'll be able to see all the information on this rain garden. Hopefully, maybe not at this scale, maybe create something in their own home that will help capture and filter water.
Can I add another
These
plug for
gardens,
this too?
do what?
Sorry, I really like rain gardens. I think rain gardens do a lot of the same work that engineered solutions do, but one benefit they have over them is that they also are great for pollinators. So that's another way that they can help. And also they're, because they're nature-based solutions, they're often more self-regulating than an engineered solution. So big plus for that. And there are a lot of options and ways that people can do this on whatever scale they want to deal with stormwater integration on their property.
Yep, and I was actually just about to say that the plants that we chose for this rain garden were specifically for pollinators, so they have a dual purpose of helping with water filtration and also attracting pollinators. And it's the Senior Center Garden Club. They were so excited to have this, so they're so excited to take care of it for us. So again, going back to what I focus on the most, which is dam removal and all the other things that come underneath it. We want to improve the water quality, make sure the rivers are free flowing, they're cooler water, more oxygen. We want to restore native biodiversity, birds, mammals, aquatic life. Again, we are trying to repair a damaged ecosystem, and that doesn't mean just dams, but in general, trying to help mitigate that. So we want to restore the continuity of the habitat within these, within the rivers. And as I showed you on the map, it's not just the Concord. Our watershed goes into the Merrimack, which goes out to the ocean. So the fish that are going back and forth are actually helping to be a part of the Gulf of Maine fishing economy. So it's all linked. And then in the future, of course, we want to build climate resilience. So we want to reduce flooding hazards upstream and downstream. And we definitely want to maintain stream flow during droughts. So the last little bit that I have for you, two things, is that we have a river report card. And the last one we did was in 2018. We're actually going to be launching this soon, within the next couple of months. The categories are pretty much the same, except for under the habitat. One of the things that we did, because we want to think about aquatic connectivity, is we took a look at the dams. So we will be launching this soon. It will be publicly available in June, so stay tuned for that. And if you're not on our outer news, I would suggest going to OARS3rivers.org and signing up for that, because we have a fantastic communications person, and she has some incredible stuff that she sends out via our newsletters, and it will tell you all about all the happenings in the watershed, all the things that we're doing, all the events that we're having. We also have a special one too. If you're interested just in the dams, we also have an Otter goes over the dam. So Otter's kind of our mascot right now. So we just want to thank you so much for letting us talk. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Well, we
Thank
have,
you. Well, can I just add one clarification? That great job as usual. You used the term non-jurisdictional, and we didn't really define that. So that is the reason some dams are non-jurisdictional is due to the size of the dam itself and the impoundment behind it. So I think it's 6 feet and 15 acres. Is that right? So if the head of the dam is lower than that, or if it's only impounding only 15 acres, it's a lot of area. But that's the cutoff for the Office of Dam Safety. Those dams obviously still do cause ecological issues, and their removal is something OARS is still interested in. So, but that was great. Thank you.
so just pick up on one thing. We've already got a request for the contact information. Maybe you want to put that page up again, or maybe you just want to put that
Can we put it in the chat?
In the chat, exactly.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Sure.
And I just I'll ask another question. This one's from me. Do you have directions and information on rain gardens with native plants? That sounds like a great project. Love to get people involved in it here.
That's a great question. We actually were right next to a number of garden clubs and land organizations at the Sudbury Earth Day Festival, and that's something that we want to work with them on. So we're going to be developing some presentations and guidance on how to do that, and hopefully do talks like this specifically about rain gardens at garden clubs. So stay tuned. I believe there are some resources online though that are not through OARS. That Heather, do you know of anything off the top of your head?
We do have some. I will say that we are updating our website. So some of our resources might be a little dated right now. But on our new website, I'll be working to update all of that. But we do have some resources on our website right now.
So definitely stay tuned and plugged into Otter News for future talks about rain gardens these are so great because you don't have to actually go somewhere for the talk. Most of them are virtual and posted later. So we are going to be putting together a library of links to these various talks on our website that folks can access.
That's great. So obviously near and dear to the heart of Sustainable Stow. So another question, it says, would you expand that? Oh, I know. Earlier in your talk, you talked about working with 3 boys and girls clubs. That didn't include Maynard's.
Well, yeah, I think historically we had worked with Maynard. This coming year, we're working with Hudson and Framingham. And we do have within a grant that we wrote, future plans to work with Coalition for a Better Acre in Lowell, which serves new immigrants and just generally underserved youth. So we are looking to expand that, but it's we need the staff to be able to do it. So that's something that will be more prevalent spring and summer of 2025.
Okay. Yeah, the point is that the Boys and Girls Club in Maynard is, well, the whole town of Maynard's on the Assabet, and the Boys and Girls Club in particular is not far off the river. So
no, it's a great idea. And we are gonna, like I said, we have some capacity building applications out there, and one of the areas we need to do is connect with the various schools, clubs, and other organizations serving youth to try to expand both our volunteer activities as well as our education activities. So that's in the works, and more will be coming soon for that.
great. So that was, oh, here's another one in the chat. When I lived in Sudbury, a big issue was purple loosestrife clogging up the wetlands. Do you have any loosestrife pulls?
For the most part, loosestrife they've found some nature-based solutions to manage purple loosestrife. So I don't want to say it's under control, but it's not as big of an issue as it was before. I was actually at a test site where they were using these nature-based solutions. It was I believe beetles that they were using to I think eat the invasive plant, but not the others. So that's why you're seeing less and less of that, and the cattails are coming back. So, but yeah, there was a lot of concern about purple loosestrife about 15, 20 years ago. And it's still an issue. It's something we're still watching. That's more of a land-based plant, though. It's not an aquatic plant. It's a wetland plant, and obviously OARS cares about wetlands. But our primary focus for invasives right now are plants that live in the water.
Okay, another. Would you share where you source your plant material for any restoration projects and rain gardens?
So my consultant, Clay Larson, he is with A Yard and a Half. And I'll put it in the chat too. He was awesome, and I believe he sourced everything from the Native Plant Trust.
Okay.
And he is A Yard and a Half. And he was absolutely amazing to work with.
And again, as we roll out our new website, we're looking for enhancements. So if there are things that people are really interested in, we'll be taking note of that and are looking to add those pages.
Great. Anyone else have a question? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask it directly. Everybody's quiet.
What was the hand?
Errol.
Hi, we're currently starting a pollinator pathway in Stow. Pollinator Pathways is a group between, right now it consists of Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. Massachusetts has 15 towns at this time, not including Stow, that have what they call pollinator pathways, which is all different kinds of native plant gardens. It could be a planter box, if that's something, the only thing a person can put in their yard, to meadows, to everything in between, because our pollinators are dying. Something like 40% of our pollinators now are at risk of going extinct in the next few years. And so I'm wondering whether your rain garden only consists of native plants. If so, that can help our pollinator pathway in Massachusetts. And we could talk to people in Marlborough who we know that they could join the state pollinator pathways. But it's very important that when you plant something nowadays, that you plant a native plant.
So that was a stipulation for doing the garden, that they all had to be native plants. So that's why you went to Native Plant Trust. But that's also on our sign. So when it gets revealed, that's what we talk about. We don't want any ornamental, because that doesn't help with our native plants. So it talks about the plants and the bees and all that. Yeah.
Great.
So I would say that as far as pollinators, I would love to do more of those. And OARS actually years ago in the little downtown area of West Concord, because we are in West Concord, they did a rain garden or bioretention area over the little downtown area as well. So it's not the first rain garden that we've done, and I would love to see us do more rain gardens in the future, because I think these are great ways to help the environment for numerous reasons.
If you'd like, if you just post an email or something where I could reach you, I could send you the Pollinator Pathways group information, and they list all the towns in New York. And Connecticut has a pathway now that almost crosses the entire state. So a pathway has to have, there's like monarchs can go 1,000 feet to go, because they need not just to stay in one garden, right? They need diverse plants. And so monarchs can go 1,000 feet, but there's some pollinators that can only go 100 feet. And so a pollinator pathway has to be able to take that into consideration and have gardens or, garden boxes, whatever, within reach of all these different pollinators so they can move from garden to garden. And right now, Connecticut has one that runs across the state because they've been working on this for a while. So if you want, I can send you the link so you can find out more about that, and you can then map these. We started a little pollinator pathway map for Stow at last Spring Fest. We handed out seeds, native seeds to people, but we could start mapping what you do along that, and maybe get a map of Massachusetts and start mapping where our pollinator pathway, where it's going.
And
That'd be great.
Heather's address is in the chat, Carol.
Okay, great.
Alan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, and thanks, Matt and Heather, for this presentation. I just wanted to let people know we're talking to the people from Stow through our library series here. I just wanted people to know that OARS is a nonprofit organization, and it is governed by a board of directors, and there are 3 directors from Stow that are on the board. I am one of them. I think many of you know Ingeborg Hageman Clark. She is currently the president of the board, and there's Holly Clack. So Stow has played a major role over the years in the organization and its governance, and will continue to play a big role going forward. I just want to encourage all of you to become members. As a nonprofit with a small budget, we're always on the lookout for more members. We get some percentage of our finance operating costs through memberships. It's quite reasonable. We also do quite a bit of grant fundraising through grants, and that's how we operate. But it's really quite a small organization. It only exists because people step up and volunteer to become members, board members, and volunteers. And there are plenty of opportunities for people in Stow to do that through OARS, and I hope you will.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alan.
Alan.
We got another question here. What are the positives and potential negatives of creating river edge walking trails?
It's a great question. I think not all walking trails are created equal. Also, thanks, Alan, for bringing that up. That's really important information to share, and I think I need to include that in my next slide deck for presentations. But walking trails, I think they're great. Like I said before, people need to have a real personal and emotional connection with our rivers, our watershed, and all of our resources to really care about them, to want to protect them. So getting people into nature, getting people on the water, getting people on the trails is an essential way to do that. But there is some harm. If you're talking about trails that are impermeable, that contribute to runoff, can contribute to nutrients and other things in the water that we don't want in the water. So I think it's got to be a balance. If we can advocate for anything, it would be walking trails that are permeable, that have some kind of buffer, a natural buffer to filter the runoff and also store some of the floodwater and keep the floodwater from getting onto the trails and causing issues there. That would be great. So what we don't want to see is paved trails right up to the river's edge, because that's problematic. But I love them. I walk almost every day on trails along. I'm not in our watershed, unfortunately, but along the Stony Brook, and it's great. That's my happy place with my dog, and obviously I clean up after her. And we need more of that. We need more people that just connect with it and fall in love with it and want to protect it. But it has to be in a way that mitigates the harm these projects can cause.
Great, thanks. So I think those are all the questions that I've noticed in our chat. Is there any other questions?
I do want to make note of one thing, and that is, as I was going out to get the link for the general pollinator pathway org, there's now way more than just the few towns I mentioned. There are now towns stretching more across the country as well. So just since I did a write-up on this, a month ago, they've added a whole bunch of new, not towns, new states. So it's growing really
Great.
pretty quickly.
Great.
And I'll put in, I did the generic one, and you can go through and look at all about it and look at all the states. And there's also Massachusetts listed. But if you want, I can just put the Massachusetts link as well, so you can see the towns, the 15 towns in Mass that are now registered on the pollinator pathway.
Great. Do it quickly. Some people are now leaving us. It's getting late.
Okay. I'm bringing it up.
Anything else that we want to discuss here tonight with our great guests? Great. Well, thank you all. Thank you particularly, Heather and Matt. Great to have you with us tonight.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
We may have to have you back again as some of your projects expand.
I think that'd be great. We are definitely looking to do a lot more of everything, but stay tuned to definitely sign up for our newsletter. And when our new website launches, really, it's going to be a great resource for not only what we're doing and how folks can get involved, but resources for people to get information for a variety of topics beyond what just OARS does.
Yeah, I endorse your newsletter. I love it. It's a great newsletter, well laid out. I love the pun in the title.
Yeah.
I love otters, so, I'm a sucker for it.
I saw my first one in the river this weekend in our watershed too. So they're really amazing creatures.
Great.
All the more reason to just want to get out there and do more work to protect them. Not just the otters, everything.
So again, thank you both. Heather, I hope you get out of the office and go home now.
Heading home now.
Tina, anything to say in closing?
No, thank you again. This is really great. Thank you for coming.
And next month we continue in a way.
Yep.
Because next month's talk will be on the restoration of the north course of Stow Acres, and we'll have Kathy here from Stow Conservation.
Mhm.
So
We're also involved with that. Just a quick shout out. We're playing a minor role for that, but it's a really wonderful project, and also it's going to open up additional river-based recreation access, which we're really excited about. So that I might actually stay tuned in for that one as a participant. That's a great project.
great. We'll make sure you get notified.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Sharon, you have anything? Good night.
Good
Okay.
night.
Good night, all.
Thank you.